Sonia thought she was about to marry the man of her dreams, Aarav, a charming doctor working in Paris. But on the very day they arrived at the registry, her entire world shattered when she discovered the shocking truth. Aarav was not a doctor at all, but a long-term mental patient hiding a dangerous past. Sonia's life had always been orderly and predictable. As a schoolteacher in Delhi, she spent her days guiding young minds, grading papers, and dreaming of the day she would meet the man who would become her husband. Her family had been supportive yet traditional, often reminding her that finding the right match was not just about love, but about security, respect, and social standing. Sonia had grown up listening to stories of women who married well and women who had to struggle because they didn't. She wanted neither fortune nor fame. She only wanted a partner who could offer stability, someone she could trust with her life and share her dreams with. When she first heard about Aarav from a distant relative, the description seemed too perfect to be true. He was said to be a doctor working at a prestigious hospital in Paris, a man of intellect and refinement. Photos accompanied the introduction, showing a tall, handsome man in a crisp white coat, smiling confidently at the camera, standing in front of hospital corridors that seemed immaculate and sterile. There was something magnetic about his appearance. His smile was warm but controlled, his eyes calm yet attentive. Sonia spent hours staring at the photos, imagining what it would be like to live with someone so accomplished and seemingly responsible. Their initial conversations were conducted over phone calls and video chats. Aarav's voice was soft, measured, and polite. He asked about her day, listened carefully to her responses, and spoke of his own life with careful precision. He mentioned cases at the hospital, complicated medical procedures, and the pressures of being a doctor in a foreign country. To Sonia, each word reinforced the image she had built in her mind. She pictured their life together, quiet evenings discussing books and music, weekend walks in the park, vacations in the French countryside, and the pride of being married to a man who carried respect wherever he went. Her family, too, was impressed by the match. Her father, a retired bank officer, admired the apparent intelligence and sophistication in Aarav's manner. Her mother, who had always hoped for a son-in-law who would treat Sonia with care and dignity, found comfort in his calm demeanor. Even her siblings, who often teased her about unrealistic expectations in love, agreed that this man seemed genuinely perfect. They began helping Sonia plan the wedding, from arranging photographers to selecting venues and discussing catering. The process moved quickly, and every decision seemed easier because the foundation appeared so solid. Sonia, caught in the excitement, allowed herself to dream without hesitation. She thought of the day they would register their marriage, sign the official papers, and finally be recognized as husband and wife. Every detail she imagined seemed to fit perfectly. The image of Aarav in his white coat, confident and composed, became a symbol of everything she desired, a life of stability, respect, and love. She felt certain she had found the person she was meant to be with, never questioning the carefully constructed persona that had been presented to her. Even minor inconsistencies, like the occasional evasiveness about family gatherings or his sudden disappearances for work emergencies, she dismissed as the quirks of a busy doctor. Each day brought small gestures, a thoughtful message, a call to ask about her well-being, a promise to visit her soon that made her trust him even more. Sonia had convinced herself that she was lucky, that fate had finally smiled on her after years of careful searching, and that her future with Aarav was secure, bright, and unquestionable. Her excitement grew as the day of the registry approached. Every evening, she imagined holding his hand as they signed the documents, the sense of joy and relief that would flood her once the legal formalities were complete. She didn't know that behind the polite smile and careful words, Aarav's life was nothing like the picture he had painted, a truth that would shatter her carefully constructed dreams in the most shocking way. The day of the registry arrived with an unusual mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. Sonia woke early, her heart fluttering as she prepared herself. She wore a light pastel sari, carefully draped, her hair neatly tied back, and a small bindie placed perfectly at the center of her forehead. Every detail mattered today, not because anyone else would notice, but because in her mind this was a moment of significance, the threshold to a new life. She felt a strange sense of calm under the nervous energy, convinced that once she saw Aarav again, all doubts would disappear. The registry office was modest but orderly, with white walls and rows of chairs that echoed faintly with the footsteps of other couples waiting for their turn. Sonia arrived early, hoping to avoid any rush. She held her marriage documents in her hands, smooth paper that felt weighty with promise. Aarav was already there, seated in the corner, his posture straight, his eyes flicking around the room with a restless energy that seemed slightly out of place for a man of his supposed calm and confidence. Sonia smiled at him, and he returned it with a faint, uncertain nod. She dismissed the flicker of doubt she felt. Perhaps it was just nerves, she told herself. As they approached the clerk's desk, Sonia's stomach tightened with anticipation. The papers were exchanged, identities verified, and the process moved methodically. When the clerk began examining Aarav's documents, Sonia felt her pulse rise with excitement. She expected the official papers to confirm everything she had been told: the degrees, the certifications, the proof that this man was indeed a practicing doctor. She thought of the future once these formalities were complete, of walking out hand in hand, legally married, ready to step into a life she had dreamed of for so long. Then the clerk paused, fingers lingering on Aarav's identification folder. There was a slight frown, a pause that felt heavier than the air in the room. Sonia leaned forward instinctively, curiosity and unease mingling. The clerk carefully pulled out a document that had been stapled among Aarav's papers, something that seemed official but entirely unexpected. As Sonia read the heading, her heart seemed to skip. The words were clinical and impersonal, yet carried a weight that made her world tilt. Psychiatric facility records, detailing multiple admissions, diagnoses, and treatment histories. There was no mention of a medical degree or hospital employment, only notes describing mental health conditions, past incidents of aggression, and prolonged treatment. Sonia froze, the paper trembling in her hands. She glanced at Aarav, whose face remained unreadable, but the slight twitch in his jaw betrayed tension. The man she had believed to be composed, reliable, and highly educated was now revealed to be someone entirely different. Fear mingled with disbelief, spreading through her chest like ice. Memories of their brief courtship suddenly appeared in a new, chilling light. His occasional evasiveness, the strange obsessions he had shown, the unexplained absences. Everything that once seemed normal, even endearing, now carried a sinister undertone. The clerk, sensing her reaction, carefully explained that the records were official and accurate. Sonia's mind raced. She thought of the life she had envisioned, the love she had believed in, and realized how close she had come to signing her life away under false pretenses. The registry, a place meant to formalize joy and unity, had become a stage for a shocking revelation that shook her to her core. What had seemed like destiny now felt like a trap. In that sterile office, with the sunlight falling softly through the windows, Sonia experienced a clarity she had never known. The man she thought she knew, the life she thought she was stepping into, both vanished in an instant, leaving only questions, fear, and the undeniable truth that her dreams had been built on deception. News of what had happened at the registry spread through Sonia's family almost immediately. Her mother, who had been carefully preparing for the wedding, felt a cold wave of shock that left her momentarily speechless. Her father, usually composed and methodical, struggled to contain a storm of anger and disbelief. Her siblings gathered around, their expressions a mixture of concern and confusion, as Sonia recounted the terrifying discovery. Each word she spoke seemed to chip away at the sense of normalcy that had surrounded them for months, revealing a world of lies that none of them could have imagined. The initial reaction was one of denial. Sonia's father refused to believe that someone could fabricate an entire identity so completely. He argued that perhaps the documents had been misfiled or misinterpreted. Her mother, clinging to hope, insisted that Aarav's family must have been unaware of what had been revealed, that maybe the past conditions no longer applied. Even some relatives who had heard the story secondhand suggested that Sonia consider giving the marriage a chance, that love might cure what records could not. The idea seemed absurd to Sonia, but the voices of her family made her doubt her own instincts for the first time. Amidst the confusion, others were not so forgiving. Some relatives whispered accusations of fraud and deceit, insisting that Aarav's family had deliberately orchestrated the marriage to secure some advantage, whether financial or social. They questioned the validity of every photograph, every story, and every promise that had led Sonia to believe she was marrying a doctor. The contrast in opinions created a tense environment, leaving Sonia feeling isolated, caught between relatives who wanted to trust and those who demanded vengeance. Sonia herself struggled with a mix of emotions that seemed impossible to untangle. She remembered the times when Aarav had appeared distant, his attention wandering at odd moments, or when he had become unusually intense about trivial subjects. At the time, she had explained these behaviors away as the quirks of a busy professional or the eccentricities of a thoughtful man. Now, with the truth staring her in the face, those same memories became evidence of something far more sinister. What had once seemed minor now felt like a series of warning signs she had missed, mistakes she could not undo. Her family tried to reason with her, offering different perspectives, but nothing could erase the gnawing fear that she had come dangerously close to binding herself legally to someone whose mental state was unstable. The thought of living with Aarav day after day, unaware of when he might experience a dangerous episode, filled her with dread. The reality of what could have happened was almost too much to bear. Even as they debated, Sonia's mind returned again and again to the registry office. The cold white walls, the sterile air, the moment the clerk had handed her the shocking documents. That single moment had shattered not only her trust in Aarav, but also the sense of certainty she had carried for months. Her life, carefully structured and guided by rational planning, had collided with an unforeseen deception that left her questioning everything she had believed about the man she thought she would marry. By the end of the day, a sense of determination began to replace her fear. Sonia knew that no matter the family debates, no matter the social pressure, she could not ignore what she had discovered. The future she had imagined might be gone, but she resolved to take control of her life, to confront the truth head-on, and to ensure that no one could manipulate her again. The shock of discovery had awakened a vigilance she never knew she possessed, a clarity born of survival instinct rather than blind trust. As Sonia began to piece together the fragments of Aarav's life, a much darker story emerged than she could have ever imagined. At first, she could only focus on what the registry had revealed: psychiatric records, treatment notes, and multiple admissions to a hospital that specialized in severe mental health cases. But curiosity, mixed with a lingering fear, compelled her to dig deeper. She began asking questions, discreetly researching his past, reaching out to people who had known him before he moved abroad, and examining every detail he had ever shared with her. The more Sonia uncovered, the clearer it became that Aarav's so-called doctor persona was nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion. He had no medical degree, no hospital employment, and no professional credentials of any kind. Instead, he had spent years in and out of psychiatric facilities, treated for conditions that included delusions, paranoia, and violent tendencies. Each record she found was like a piece of a puzzle that, once assembled, revealed a man whose grasp on reality had often been tenuous at best. There were incidents that had never been mentioned during their courtship, episodes of aggression that had put others at risk. Sonia discovered that in his youth, Aarav had attacked a neighbor with a broken bottle during a delusional episode, an event that had led to his first long-term hospitalization. Another record described a night when he had set fire to his own room, convinced he was warding off imaginary intruders. These were not isolated lapses. They were patterns of behavior indicating deep psychological instability, behaviors that could easily become dangerous if left unchecked. Sonia also learned about his obsession with hospitals and medical life. During his treatment, Aarav had developed a fascination with medical jargon, procedures, and hospital culture, mimicking doctors in ways that were often disturbing to his caregivers. He had collected brochures, studied textbooks superficially, and memorized phrases and procedures he barely understood. To outsiders, he had appeared knowledgeable, polite, and meticulous, everything Sonia had thought she loved about him. But the truth was a chilling imitation of competence, a performance designed to convince others of a reality that did not exist. As these revelations sank in, Sonia realized how close she had come to making a decision that could have put her life in danger. Every shared conversation, every small gesture that had once seemed endearing, now took on a sinister undertone. His occasional disappearing acts were not mere quirks. They were episodes where he had retreated into delusional states, detached from the world she trusted him to inhabit. His intensity about trivial details was not charm, it was obsessive behavior, symptomatic of a mind struggling to distinguish reality from fantasy. The registry office, which had initially felt like a bureaucratic inconvenience, now appeared as a life-saving checkpoint. If the clerk had not uncovered the documents, Sonia might have signed her life away to a man whose mental health issues could escalate into unpredictable or even violent behavior. She understood that what had seemed like a shocking surprise at the time was in fact a crucial intervention that saved her from potential danger. In the days that followed, Sonia felt a mix of horror, relief, and resolve. The fear that had gripped her was tempered by the clarity of knowing that she had avoided a disaster. The man she had once imagined as a loving and responsible partner was nothing more than a fabrication, a performance designed to lure her into a trap. The realization left her shaken, but it also awakened a determination to protect herself from deception in the future. Sonia understood in that moment that her instincts, though initially clouded by hope and desire, had ultimately guided her towards survival. The aftermath of the registry revelation was a turbulent and exhausting period for Sonia and her family. The initial shock had gradually transformed into a determined resolve to seek justice and prevent any further deception. Sonia knew that while she had escaped personal harm, the fraud and danger perpetrated by Aarav and his family could not go unchallenged. Legal action became the only way to formalize her safety and ensure that no one else would fall victim to the same elaborate scheme. Sonia's family began by gathering every piece of evidence they could find. Copies of the psychiatric records, the forged certificates, the photographs that had been staged to portray Aarav as a doctor. All were meticulously organized and presented to a legal advisor. The lawyer, initially skeptical of the case's complexity, soon recognized the depth of the deception. Each fabricated detail, each falsified document, was a deliberate attempt to manipulate and mislead. The case of fraud, misrepresentation, and intentional deception was clear, and the authorities quickly took notice. Investigators reached out to Aarav's acquaintances, former classmates, and neighbors, piecing together a timeline of his past behavior. It became evident that the perfect doctor image had been constructed over years. His fascination with hospitals and medical life was part of a delusion, carefully performed to impress others and create a false sense of reliability. His family's role in perpetuating this illusion was also scrutinized, as they had either knowingly assisted in the deception or willfully ignored the danger, allowing him to present himself as someone he was not. Legal proceedings moved slowly but steadily. Aarav was required to undergo psychiatric evaluation, which confirmed that his condition had not fully stabilized and that he posed risks if left unsupervised. The court placed him under mandatory psychiatric care, while his family faced charges for their complicity in the fraudulent marriage attempt. Each hearing brought further clarity and a sense of vindication to Sonia. The ordeal, which had started as a personal shock, had now become a public acknowledgement of the deception and danger she had narrowly avoided. For Sonia, the experience was transformative. Her trust in appearances and in others' words had been shaken, but she emerged stronger, more cautious, and more self-aware. She realized that intelligence, charm, and apparent sophistication could hide dangerous realities, and that vigilance and evidence were essential in navigating relationships and legal commitments. Friends and relatives who had initially doubted the severity of the situation now regarded her with admiration for her courage and clarity in handling the crisis. Beyond the legal resolution, Sonia sought to reclaim her sense of normalcy. She returned to her routines, finding solace in her work, in the familiarity of her home, and in the support of family who had stood by her. Yet, she carried with her a permanent reminder of the thin line between trust and deception. The registry office, once just a bureaucratic necessity, had become the place where fate intervened, revealing a truth that saved her from a life of fear and uncertainty. The story of Sonia and Aarav became a cautionary tale within her community. It served as a reminder that appearances can be deceiving, that careful verification is crucial, and that courage in facing the truth is as important as hope in imagining the future. Sonia's journey, fraught with danger and deception, ultimately became a testament to resilience, clarity, and the power of uncovering truth before it was too late. She walked away from the ordeal not with bitterness, but with a renewed sense of control over her own life, aware that survival often depended on questioning the story that others wanted you to believe.